Okay, I will call the Administration Finance Committee meeting Tuesday, March 14th into order. And with that, I guess we'll move right into the agenda.
Sure, sounds good.
And the first thing on the agenda is appointment of committee chair and vice chair.
I'll nominate Wayne Peterson as the chair for the Finance and Administration Committee.
I'll nominate Debbie. Okay, that's fine. I guess we need a roll call. How would we do that another week?
Yeah, there's consensus amongst the committee, just make sure it's in the record.
Okay.
Just for clarification for Eric particularly, because your bylaws specify while we've amended the bylaws to include up to 3 members of the public on these committees, only that a board member can serve as chair and vice chair.
Okay, but do they get the vote?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right. If I don't hear any objections. Okay, so the vice chair and I will nominate Debbie. Whatever your name is.
Oh, you're gonna nominate me?
Is for vice chair, yeah, I don't have a choice.
I think that's probably
Okay,
true.
okay, I'll accept it.
Okay, all right.
And you'll be vice chair.
No, yeah, this is for vice chair.
Oh, vice chair. Okay, I thought you were throwing it back again. Okay. Yeah, I think it's just by default, I become the vice chair.
What are you gonna do? All right, so moving right along. So Jeff's got all the rest of it.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to. I'll kick it off and then we'll roll in. So we wanted to bring forward a draft report on the administration cost allocation plan. And with us today is Mary from RGS, and hopefully she there. Yep, right there. She looks like she's either in Las Vegas or Venice. One of the two.
Venice.
We just as by way of background before we actually pull up her materials, which we sent out to or post on the agenda for all of you. This is something the district's long had an administration fund that might be called a general fund, but really works more like an internal service fund where the other funds of the district pay their share of the cost to administration. The district updated the cost allocation plan about 13 years ago.
About.
Somewhere in there, and we've been using the assigned percentages since that time. There's something that you're familiar with in preparing our budget, reviewing the budget, etc. We've known for quite a while that the cost allocation was probably not sound. It just sort of didn't pass the sort of really simple test. Although for a period of time, especially maybe 5-6 years ago, there were, really between 10 and maybe 5 years ago, there was some doubt about which operations would continue moving forward, and did it make sense to try to tackle that assignment if in fact, for example, fire services might be divested. That was a real possibility until the passage of Measure A. After that occurred, the district put in the budget funding to do an update to the cost allocation plan. And we've discussed this with this committee, although the makeup of this committee's changed over years. A need to do that. Then COVID hits, and it made very little sense because we're right back in this period of time that was very uncertain. We weren't sure if say, for example, parks and recreation activities were to normalize again. And so we punted or delayed actually performing this analysis during those couple of years. So again, the current year budget included the objective of updating the cost allocation plan. And then early last fall, we reached out to RGS and ended up making contact with Mary, and who said, yeah, I think I could kind of perform an independent review of your cost allocation plan and come up with some recommendations. And so we kind of kicked that process off at that time, and Mary produced a report, but we could pull up that draft report and go through its recommendations. kind of work,
I
so
have that here.
you have a copy of it too?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. So, so we've asked Mary to participate today or be available today for questions that the committee might have. Again, Natalie and I have worked with her off and on over the past few months to just sort of get our own records sort of straight and whatnot. So maybe I don't have a formal, presentation on that. We can go through the recommendations of the report, or maybe Mary, it would be worth, if you're able, maybe provide your point of view of how this was, this process was attacked.
I could do that, certainly. Jeff gave the background on kind of where we started, but you'll note in going through the memo, we kind of took a look at what the existing practice allocation, cost allocation is, the percentages that remain pretty flat, and the options. What are some other bases that we could use to allocate? And then looking at the district and, the complexity that some of those allocation methods might require, systems that they might require, staffing, we landed on what we feel is the most reasonable allocation, which is based on actuals from audited actuals, because budget versus actual can be quite different. And if all of the different departments, funds remained the same and didn't really change much between the years, that would be something that you could look at as a budget. But when changes occur, as Jeff mentioned, it's better to look at the actuals. So we took a look at the different bases and landed on using the actuals. We've also put together that one that you just passed by with the shaded out areas. So this is kind of a standard allocation worksheet that the staff could use each year as they develop the budget. So the allocation percentage would be calculated based on the applicable actual year that's being used. So for fiscal year 23-24, that would be 21-22 actual audited numbers. So that percentage would change as the actuals change for each department fund. And then once you actually put the total administrative costs in that very top field, the rest would be populated automatically. So it'll be pretty easy for staff to maintain. So, and going down further, that's the recommended approach. So going down further, we took a look at all the options, approaches to, using actual operating expenses or operating budget, number of positions, administrative costs, and then related allocation to funds. So if we go down a little bit further, we put some history in there so that you can kind of see, and it's small print here, but what the past years have been as far as what total operating expenses have been the actuals versus what the percentage is. And then we have that flat percentage that you see for different years. It changes obviously between departments. So when you use the actuals from a previous 2 years back audited, you'll get more realistic results so that the funds are allocated with reasonable, appropriate costs. And then we took a look too at just looking at an operating budget history. So as Jeff mentioned, you have operating budget that over many years has kind of changed. So if you allocate based on an operating budget, it's not always going to produce the best results. So you'd have funds that really didn't end up recognizing the kind of operations that were budgeted because of unforeseen circumstances, changes in operations, COVID. So looking at the operating budget didn't seem like the best allocation base to use. And then some other options, we took a look at going further, number of positions. So you can look at number of positions to allocate costs. And what this really shows, there's not a lot of changes over time in your district for departments. There are some, But those position changes would really be captured in your operating costs. So I think it's more reflective of changes in operations from year to year versus the position history. And then just a history on the administrative costs, what they've been allocated over time for each year, just as historical reference, just to show what those have been. And they change over time based on administrative needs for the agency. We didn't include, for instance, when looking at the actual results and operating budget, we didn't include those one-time non-recurring types of expenses that would not typically be assessed administrative allocation. And then the history of what was allocated over the past number of years. We have that based on the percentage that's being used, that flat percent, 44 and 30, those percentages that have been in place for some time. Then let's see, there's a couple of other sheets.
Yeah, we just kind of, these
Oh,
are
okay.
backup spreadsheets that are embedded
Yeah.
in the report, so.
So this is a whole, the rest of what you're seeing are the, there's an Excel file where all of this information is, so that it can be referenced by staff at any time.
So I thought we would, spend some time talking about, what are the implications of adopting this kind of change. And as I mentioned, I think, we felt for some time that the current allocation or maybe the past 10 or 12 years was not reflective of actual expenses or time spent or whatever. So we wanted to take a look at, okay, if this is based on the district's overall expenses, not overall operating expenses, and this model works very similar to the way we calculate the asset replacement schedule, whereby the costs for asset replacement are determined by the most recent year's depreciation calculation. So it's something that it kind of lags like a full year, but over time it should be reflective of those costs. That kind of made sense to us internally in terms of a formula going forward. These figures would not be stagnant. So for example, what you see on this first page here, these calculations will be changing each year based on the most recent audited financial statements. So each year after the audited financial statements are prepared, these calculations that update. You might expect some minor tweaks each year for the next budget year. So it would become a model for the following budget year. So right now, these figures are based on the 2021-22 audited financial statements, operating expenses only, excluding transfers and the prior administrative allocation in any one-time expenses like the purchase of a piece of equipment or something of that nature, which might, unnecessarily make it more volatile. But there are some pretty significant impacts here, particularly to the fire fund if this is adopted as is, and that's why we've asked Tom to participate and kind of understand this, because it has it could have a significant impact. One of the things, before I go over what we kind of modeled as examples, is when we originally looked at this, we took all of the costs that are in administration. So that's all of the administrative staff and all of the expenses that are paid for out of administration, which include like computer maintenance and software maintenance and all the district's property liability insurance, et cetera. So there's a whole host of costs that get divvied up in this manner. One of the things we would recommend doing if we move forward with this allocation is actually we have one position in the office. It's historically been funded by administration. The position is a customer service representative. And that person's duties are really tied to water and sewer billing. They take care of all the billing process, developing service orders, customer service inquiries, et cetera. And probably would not have a need for that position if we weren't in the water and sewer business. So what we would recommend is a part of considering implementation is actually just taking that position out of administration and putting it directly into water and sewer. So we weren't inadvertently spreading those costs amongst the other departments, which is not to say that that individual doesn't do services that are district wide, but by and large, it's tied to the water and sewer billing process. So the actual amount of money that would be allocated would be reduced by through this formula would be reduced by removing that position and tying them to water and sewer directly. So anyway, that's one example, but even in doing so, it has a pretty drastic impact. Like for example, right now, if we took that, I'm trying to follow Natalie's examples here. Right now, or the current year for 22-23, for the current allocation, the water fund paid $583,000 for admin. Under the new formula, plus 60% of customer service rep, I think is what we settled on.
For,
Customer service rep.
for the water. Yes.
Yeah, okay, for 60% water, sorry. It would be reduced to 545 for if in fact this year was going to be amended, it'd be reduced to 545. On the sewer fund, the current allocation, again, for this budget year is, for the current budget is 398. If we were to implement the modeled figures or the report is drafted and remove the customer service rep and billing that portion of that position directly back to wastewater or the sewer fund, that would go from 398 to basically 372. Solid waste is, I'm sorry, drainage would almost have no change at all. Well, a little tiny change, it would go from 6,600 to 6,200. Solid waste is modeled in the formula because when we merged the solid waste fund and the Parks and Recreation Fund a couple of years back, we didn't amend we just took the 5% solid waste and pushed it into the new fund. So you'll see that reference in the report. But the combined solid waste and Parks and Recreation today is $205,000. And the combined figure, if implemented going forward, if I understand this right, is about 193. So about $12,000 less. And then fire fund is again the one that's most impacted by this analysis, as you can obviously see. The current allocation for admin by fire is 132. If I'm sorry, I think I just give you. I think I screwed up when I gave you those figures. Let me start over.
Can I stop for 1 second? My computer just started an update, so I can't access, like if anybody's trying to get on Zoom, I can't get to it because my computer just restarted itself.
Is Mary still here?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How long do we think that will take?
It said it already tried to restart and now it's saying it will restart several times, so I don't know. 7 minutes. Other than turn it off, which may. I told you not to do it though. I could go to my desk and do.
Is there any other way to administer?
My desk and.
Did your computer die?
It's restarting, so I can't,
It decided to do updates during the middle.
and so I can't access the.
I'd recommend we just take a break, see, under the law now, we have to allow this room, since we're.
That's
limited
fine,
in
that's
remote
fine.
Participation,
Yeah.
we've got to allow somebody to participate in. I would just go
I can go grab my laptop.
We log in as another Zoom administrator, we'll see if that.
Yeah, I might have to.
Could we just go to another item and come back to this?
No, you,
No, because you've lost Zoom with. the-
well, anybody who's presently in the meeting can still participate, but if another member of the public wanted to join in, they wouldn't be
Able to join.
able to join. But I mean, it's because we've noticed the meeting with remote participation. All of you are here.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get this restored.
Is there coffee made?
No, but there's a Keurig, if there's pods, you can.
You're using those pods?
I mean, no, we don't, I bring no coffee. I think the employees just bring what they want.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so, all right, then,
We're cheap.
There's
We don't
water.
give away
all right, well,
stuff.
I just don't want the environment, I'm thinking those pods. What's that? It's in the agenda. It's embedded as an attachment. So, yeah, you would have, you didn't bother,
And I got back.
yeah, you didn't do your homework.
I know, I didn't.
Mouse.
It doesn't really matter. Oh, my.
Still, see that, because if yours were still, we should be back in business.
It's
And I do have some questions too.
Good.
gonna restart multiple times.
I think
But it's going faster than
mine's updating too. Sue,
We might have got the right guy on the committee, though.
The right guy, what, the tech guy?
Patch Tuesday and force patches every Tuesday for Microsoft. So
It's just the way it is.
Oh,
it's just the way every Tuesday is when they
do the
push it and then they'll populate in the morning. They don't do anything. It'll force itself on the computer.
I just.
That's good to know because I have to. Voluntary access and, but it was a router problem.
yeah, mine's updating too.
We all use Microsoft
But faster than,
computers or laptops.
unless it goes to this other one.
Might just be.
I mean, I could do it from my desk. I can get onto this. desk.
As long as there's not somebody else trying to get on Zoom, because
That's the
Mary's
only-
participating, we should be, I just want to make sure we can let somebody else in.
Yeah. Okay, you can log in. Log in as. I just make the Zoom.
Reminds me of the days back when we had, we were doing our meeting by FaceTime. before we got on
We
Zoom
had
during
A few
COVID,
confusing.
it's like, yeah.
This is the first time that's happened, though, at a Zoom computer.
Yeah. But looks like the wind has calmed down.
look my password up.
So
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay. We're good.
we're good. Nobody's trying to get in?
No.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. Guess we need a backup computer. Okay, anyways, let me just back up for 1 second. I think I was giving you some, I should have paid closer attention. So if we remove the customer service representative position from the administration fund and just charge it directly to water and sewer, which is at a minimum what I would recommend doing, since that is, those really a water and sewers direct support. The allocation for for water fund goes from 583 to 428, but then they end up directly paying for 60% of what we reduced. So 60% of about $80,000. Sewer fund present allocation is 398. Again, for current year, go to 306, but pay for about 40% of that same $80,000 directly. Drainage fund from 6,600 to 2,200. Fire fund from 132 to 328. And Parks Rec solid waste from 205 to about 165. So the fire fund would be the one that's, most adversely affected by the implementation of this analysis. And that is it's a material increase. While there'd be savings in all the other funds, it's not a total cost change at all. It's just how those costs are allocated. It would adversely affect the fire fund and significantly. So we wanted to kind of address that with you, answer questions you have about this, talk about whether this model or this method is something that's desired. Talk about some of the benefits of how I think over time it kind of self-corrects because it can be updated each year to reflect expense changes within the district. So for example, if the water fund implements a treatment technique that has new ongoing costs, it'll be picked up in the cost allocation, and it would see an increased percentage as long as it increased at a rate faster than the other funds, et cetera.
So here's my comments. You need some kind of allocation, and there's really not a perfect way of doing this. Short of having a time study done, which doesn't make sense given the size of the organization. But my question is, overtime, is overtime included in these actuals?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm a little concerned about that because I don't know that there's gonna be overtime that's incurred necessarily as much as, well, maybe with water and sewer, but I think with the fire department, there's more overtime that seems like gets incurred. So that concerns me because I think it skews it a little bit. I'm supportive of having that customer service position move to water and sewer since they're really supporting the day-to-day. Their day-to-day job is related to water and sewer, so that makes sense. But along those same lines, the engineer's position, I believe the engineer supports primarily water and sewer. Is that,
yeah, the engineer's position is not part of administration. It's billed primarily to water and sewer.
okay,
It's
it already
all-
is.
yeah, It's
Okay.
not, it's not a part of this analysis.
Okay, that's good. I just wanted to verify that. And with the drainage, because we know that that particular fund has always run a little short. The expenses for that exceed the revenue that's coming in. And it's really doesn't have staff that's dedicated. It's the water and sewer folks that are fulfilling that role per se.
Yeah, actually, the drainage, there are some direct expenses that are to the drainage fund. There is a little bit of the staff from the district engineer that is tied to that fund.
Well, my question is how closely are really the water and sewer folks and even the engineer allocating their time back to drainage?
I didn't bring my budget with me to show the allocation of. So do you have the handy?
So they don't do it as they actually incur their time or.
No, we would have material costs, but really, again, the drainage fund,
It's not huge dollars, but I just wanna, I'm just, my real concern is really the fire department. And because there's so much overtime, because this is one area of all the departments, this is one area where there's constant turnover in staffing. And that constant turnover results in overtime. The other is that the overtime is also incurred when we have out of county services. So when we send firefighters out of county, we wanted to encourage that because it's revenue back to us. But by the same token, it's also, to me, I think skewing these numbers a bit.
so the year that's yes and no, the year that this is based on, the current figures, most recent year that's complete is 21-22. We didn't have an out of county assignment. That really occurred in the current
Yeah.
fiscal year.
But it could
It
in the
could,
future, and that's the one department, I think water and sewer has some overtime, because of maybe the rain. But I think for the most part, it's really the fire department that is incurring a good deal of overtime.
So, yeah, you asked earlier about the drainage fund, 2% of the district engineers expense tied to drainage.
Okay,
So actually, water sewer overtime, there's actually probably more than you think in there.
Yeah, we have people on call, which means there's overtime every day.
that's occurring,
Yeah,
okay.
So we have someone on call 24 hours a day.
there's probably like
It's-
40 to 45,000.
And they're paid for being on call?
Mhm.
Okay.
So the drainage fund itself, which I think you're just kind of trying to figure out what expenses are tied to drainage. So expense wise, we've got 2% of the district engineers, so there's a little bit of salary costs, and then portion of benefits. We've got that's it. There's a total of $14,000 in expenses in the current year 6,000 of which is the allocation of administrative services. So it makes up right now like 40% of the drainage fund's expenses. So this good, bad, or different, this update to the cost allocation plan would reduce that for the drainage fund from roughly $6,000 to 2,300, so a little less than half. So it's and as you know, the drainage fund, really, if we're unable to increase the rates that we charge to those customers that benefit from the district's two storm drain facilities, will end up being a burden of the property tax, of general funds, property tax dollars, and it will divert funds from fire and from Parks and Rec at some point. You know, we've got a fund balance here but you would not be able to take funds from water and sewer to pay for the drainage services.
Yeah. I'm just really worried about the fire. I mean, that's such a big jump.
Yeah, it's a
And
really
in terms of the administration, I mean, when it comes to collections, is the collections for water and sewer, is the collections actually done by this customer service rep?
billing, you mean? Yes.
Billing, collections, posting of the cash?
Yes.
All of that is done by this customer service rep.
Well, the account tech posts cash as well,
I'm sorry?
the account tech.
Oh,
position.
posting payments, receiving payments.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a shared it's shared in the office. But we kind of thought by removing one position entirely, it helped spread
Balance it
that
out.
load, because it's not as though Maya doesn't do work for other services.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
primarily water and sewer.
Yeah, well, I just look at what is, water and sewer, are what we bill for.
Right.
And it's all the other, streetlights, park and rec, and fire are all coming from property tax. From that small amount of property tax. But there's no real activity that takes place to collect that revenue. It's really the water and sewer that's got the billing and then the accounts receivables. That has to be managed.
Well, in terms of stuff that happens monthly, we do
And you're
have,
saying that that's the equivalent of one FTE.
yeah. Well, I think it's generously the equivalent, by removing that person from the allocation and assigning them all to, I think we can legitimately assign those duties to water and sewer. There is some peripheral benefits to the rest of the district by having her here, by having that position filled, because she's the primary phone, customer service greeter and answers the phone. But most of those calls or many of those calls are water and sewer anyways. But there are other benefits, just like there are other persons in the office, in the administration fund, who do work for water and sewer. I mean, your example of posting payments, that's kind of a split duty. Our account technician posts payments, but everybody in the office is like, also takes payments or also answers. the phone,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm trying to see, is it one
Is it
FTE?
more than
or is it
one,
more than one
or like
FTE?
1.25?
Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get some.
Yeah, I mean,
clarity
at
on.
some point though, if we try to strip out everything that water and sewer does and take it away from here, then we're losing we would eliminate the need to do the cost allocation, right? Because we're still asking water and sewer to pay for the administrative costs.
Mhm. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then why would we include overtime in this calculation? Why would that be included?
Yeah, we never discussed removing it or not including it. It's an
We just
expense.
did operating.
Yeah, we
expenses.
talked about, should there be expenses that are not included in it? And, I think actually Mary and Natalie spent more time on that. And we deduced that we should not be including the previous administrative cost allocation, because that, that's a product of its own assignment. And so you could be like double erring on it if you include that. So we
We did.
removed that. We removed all the one-time expenses because we
Yeah,
tend to spike, you know, you could have
a little skew it too.
skew
Yeah.
it temporarily, and so it seemed unnecessarily. We kept payroll, because that's our payroll, because payroll costs are part of our payroll processing expense. Um, So. So over time, you know, we don't incur, we do incur overtime in fire, but we also do it in water and sewer. I'm not sure if it would make a difference by removing it or not, or how significant a difference it might make.
I mean, I would think for the 21-22 year, if you remove it, fire's portion is gonna be higher.
On the allocation.
Mhm.
Have our auditors looked at this? I mean, this is something we have to do.
Yeah,
We need an
we cannot, yeah, we have to do this, our auditors cannot assist us with assigning, you know, they can audit this. But if they become too involved in our decision
Well, I
making, then they're no
understand.
longer independent.
Yeah.
And we don't, by the way, that's one of your next subject items, we don't really have.
We don't have auditors right now, I suppose.
So,
Well, I think that's why we've got RGS on this too.
yeah, we wanted somebody to look at this from an independent, you know, perspective from a distance, who wasn't buried in this information.
So, Mary, I'm assuming that you have done this for other government agencies of similar size to Templeton CSD?
Yeah, so just kind of a brief background. I'm a retired finance director for wastewater and water districts. I also have worked for cities, counties, and joint powers agencies. Have 35 years of experience. Have done everything in the range from, you know, kind of the technical level of accounting for these types of costs up to analyzing these types of costs and cost allocation plans, and ones for internal service funds, which can get pretty complicated, complex for cities, large cities. So I'm very comfortable with this, your agency size and operations as well.
So I guess my question is, with respect to other agencies, based on your experience, what is predominantly used? Is it the actuals, which I think are better than budget? Because it really does truly show what the costs are, as opposed to what you forecast them to be. But does it also include the overtime?
Yeah, I've actually never had an agency exclude something like that. That can vary over time, you know, over a period of time, over a number of years. Overtime can vary, but we haven't specifically removed that cost component in looking at allocating costs. Usually it would be fairly small, such that I don't think it would sway the allocation too significantly. And then as far as some of the other agencies, actuals are usually the base for allocating. A lot of agencies do the, you know, allocating based on budget and then kind of doing a true up at the end of the year or at the beginning of the next year. So this method allows you to just do it based on actuals and not having to go through that iteration.
Yeah, well, I do like the fact that the staff can actually just go in and put what were the actual costs, so that you can come up with the next year's allocation. I just want to make sure that, I mean, because this is a huge shift for us. And I'm not sure we had a good basis anyway for how we've been doing
I
it.
know we did not, I mean,
Yeah.
we knew we had a flawed formula, I didn't really know what to expect coming out of this, but I knew it was, you know, grossly incorrect.
Yeah,
Particularly with regard to fire, it's not 10% of what we do, it's, you know, it's really our largest fund with regards to full-time employees. And, you know, amongst the largest with regards to expenditures, so, you know, we knew all that, and that's changed, right? We've made that change.
so with that, I think we probably need to look in the future at what that allocation split is in property tax for fire and park and rec. in the future. Because, we've had it, oh, well, roughly 75% goes to fire.
Yeah, it's,
What is the allocation that we have? I mean, because I think
don't
we
wanna
probably need to visit that, I'm worried because our fire fund is at such a deficit, that's what concerns me.
very
I
fragile.
mean,
It's very fragile.
If we
and-
take 2,000 out of it, it's.
Well, I mean, given what we need for a fire department right now, we need a new type 1.
Yep.
We need expansion of the facilities to accommodate 24/7. And for years, the capital fund was not, capital replacement fund was not funded. So we're in bad shape. So it concerns me now, we're gonna put this on top. So I think we need to look at the property tax, because at some point, it's gonna be a hard decision between how much of our property tax go towards park and rec versus fire. And we're gonna have to prioritize that.
Yeah, and then also keep in mind, you haven't spent or prioritized the CFD funds, although that is just it's still
not
it's
yet.
still in its infancy and there's not a lot of money.
Yeah, not a lot of money there, and it's not, it's not building up, I think, fast enough to address what the fire need is. So that's what concerns me.
Yeah, so the fire and so keep in mind, we have streetlights in there too, but fire has received 72.125% and streetlights 1.75 and parks and recreations 26.125.
What is Park and Rec?
26.125, 26.78.
Yeah. So I think we may need to just revisit that in the future. But by the same token, I know that our administrative cost allocation has to be based on some kind of sound formula. Because it also will play into our rates and what we set our rates.
We are vulnerable, right? Our Prop 218 notice and your findings say that these costs are based on the expenses associated with them, and you cannot by law spend water, enterprise fund revenue on
Other things.
governmental services,
Yeah.
right? Like Parks and Rec or fire. So we are vulnerable if we do nothing.
I agree.
So,
Okay.
but the impacts, are significant to fire in particular, and while collectively it's the same impact district-wide, it's negatively impacts the fire fund and positively impacts the other funds almost universally with these calculations. I would like to tell you that this will catch up over time, and I think over time it will, but I don't think it'll reset the ratio. In other words, what we've actually seen is the fire fund has grown substantially, and our other funds, we've been able to keep it. The expenses have not grown nearly to the same extent. And so that's part of what you see here. But even if you were to go back a decade, the fire fund, under using this kind of allocation, this kind of formula, the fire fund would have been paying more all along.
Understood. Okay, well, that's the comments that I have. I don't know if anybody else has comments.
Pretty much along the same lines, but I'm not sure there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So,
Yeah, I mean, so I think I did want to note, don't look at this as like that we've done some other things over the last year, the current year and next year to save, to take funds and liability off the fire fund and really direct it to the administration fund. So like the UAL, that savings, not that it's borne by the administration fund, we've paid that down. That we expect to see a $38,000 savings in PERS retirement starting July 1st.
Yeah, but my concern is PERS is gonna come back and say, oh,
You're right.
2022 was a miserable year, so your UI.
Yeah, no, it is, right, that's a hopefully it's more than temporary, but I wouldn't call it a permanent savings. And then the retiree healthcare, that is now, all those expenses are now being borne by the administration fund using the OPEB set aside. And then any future shortfalls will be the responsibility of the administration fund. But that's about 37,000. So we've taken about 70, $74,000 in savings here. That does not, that only offsets, something less than half of this adjustment, if in fact this is imposed with in a future budget. So, but we wanted to answer questions, determine whether we're on the right track, figure out how you wished us to proceed with implementing it.
Well, I'm assuming that this will be something that will be applied in the 23-24 budget.
That was our objective by having this
Okay,
completed.
so
now,
we're not,
that-
yeah, okay,
Yeah. It won't go, it doesn't look backwards. It
yeah,
only looks
yeah,
forward.
okay. All right. No, I appreciate the work that you did, Mary. I guess I'm just overly concerned about the fire department.
That makes total sense.
That's what scares me, because certainly this is a huge increase for them. So. And the water and sewer fund, as you know, is pretty healthy.
Well, you have control of those income and those
Yeah.
rates in a way that, that.
We don't want the
don't.
property tax.
For the fire fund,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, it's, if implemented as drafted, it will have a significant impact.
Yeah, which I think goes back to the property tax allocation. We're gonna have to take a look at that. Would be my recommendation. Okay. Do
You
you
haven't
need
really
to
heard
vote on
Eric,
this?
I wanna, yeah,
You don't need to vote on this, do you?
well, I'd like to kind of see, I know we're throwing him in the hot seat here and,
Solve this for us.
but did the.
I think you're correct when it comes down to property tax and actually allocations between those two. And that's the major change is seeing on those numbers there, which is having that significant shift. You now have to go back and review how things are allocated to either support those numbers or not. The downside to the existing allocations is that it doesn't represent exactly where the monies are going to, the percentages of what is the actual versus what is projected.
Okay,
I mean, I don't disagree either that we need to look at that allocation, but unfortunately, once that happens, we're gonna have a big split with the community again.
Well,
Yeah,
I think there needs to be some things thought about in
Well, I don't
anticipation of
disagree, I
that.
don't disagree with you, but no matter what it is that is out there, there's gonna be that split. Like, and it was significant years ago, and it's kind of.
Well, the board had, strong policies about not touching that not touching that split. And it really hasn't changed in more than a decade. But there are, actually, why don't we hold that thought and let's talk about this when we get to the budget preparation, because I think
Okay.
if you want to talk about this anyway, let's do it under that. Yeah.
Okay,
So if there aren't any more questions on this, Mary, thanks for joining us today.
Sure.
And we'll, I think we'll be in contact. I
Okay,
really appreciate
thank you.
your attendance and sorry about our Zoom hiccup. I'm glad you made it through all that.
Oh, yeah, no problem. I'm
Yes,
happy
thank you
to
very
help out.
much.
Thank you.
And enjoy Venice. I'm a bit jealous.
That was a couple years ago, so. All right, well, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
okay, our next item then is the RFP for the auditor.
So we included in the packet, the draft RFP for the auditor. As you know, just by way of background, our term with our auditor, our contract is up. And so we knew that the last time they were here, last fall, was the last time that they would be performing services unless they resubmitted with a new partner or person responsible. So Natalie put together a draft using other samples and some like agencies. And before we set that out, we wanted to get any comments that you might have on it. Auditor is one of those, just a handful of those consultants that work directly for the board, report to the board directly. Obviously, they affect the staff as well, but really they're preparing that audit report for the board and for the public.
I don't have any comments.
I can-
on
I
the
can- I can-
RFP.
You can-
I actually read it yesterday and I just want to say you did a wonderful job. And certainly having done this for so many years, I think you knew exactly what to include, so that whoever is responding to this RFP understands what the scope of the work is and what we're looking for.
I'm hoping.
Well, yeah, and so I guess the question is when you send this out, are there, do you use, the CSDA as kind of a, who are the auditors that do government agencies?
CSD has an RFP clearinghouse that we can
Yeah.
post to,
Okay,
and then that's a place that those folks
There's a
know
30
to go to. And then you've got the names of some local,
okay,
but there aren't many.
yeah,
One of the things that makes us, I think, unique is we are unique, pretty unique for a special district in that we provide a lot of services. And so most special districts don't provide the breadth of services that we do. We have both enterprise and governmental funds,
Mhm.
et cetera. So not all of the auditors who perform work for special districts are going to be interested or capable of doing our work.
So how many different auditing firms have we used in the past? Leaf is the only one that I'm aware that, 'cause I think since I've served on the board since 2016.
Yeah, when I started in 2007, we had a different auditing team. And I think I only worked with them,
But it's been the same firm.
but so pretty much
Well,
14
you're
years.
here one other year with someone other than Leaf Cole.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. My first year I started here, there was a different auditing firm.
Okay.
But we've had Leaf and Cole ever since then and just have changed partners.
Okay.
And
So
I
it
don't,
is
and I
time to
don't,
make
yeah,
some
and I
moves.
don't know if they have another partner even to be able to,
Kind of iffy,
Submit.
they're pretty far away too, so it's,
Well, San Diego.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, again, I pulled up the draft. If the committee doesn't have any comments or suggestions for us, this is ready to go. We'll give it like a kind of one more once over and then get it posted. There'll be we've outlined in here, I wanted to call to your attention that we've outlined in here a schedule that could or should involve this committee. So the RFP would be released and then we'd have a due date in about a month. And then we've listened here with the possibility of interviewing or meeting with folks. I don't, that's really going to depend on how many proposals that we receive. We've put we have a save the date for the next committee meeting, and we would likely bring forward a scoring criteria, the proposals received in their rank order for your review. At that time, you could choose to have a more involved process. Let's say there were two really good ones and three that weren't worthy, and say, no, let's meet with these two and we could have a more robust process sometime in late May. If you wished, again, we don't know what we're gonna receive. And then we've scheduled that on June 6th, the recommendations would go to the board, and then we'd have an agreement in place hopefully shortly thereafter.
So you have the selection process and the time frame for that. Do you have in here, and I don't recall seeing it, when would you expect them to perform the first audit to come on?
This fiscal year.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, do you
Oh,
have a specific
so
date?
I put in here September, it needed to be completed by September 30th and to the board by October 30th.
Okay, where is that? What section?
So, so page 3G. The bottom, it just says the district closes its books in September and will be ready for audit field work by the middle of September of each year.
Oh, okay,
That's kind of what we've.
okay, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Restore-
And then-
I just want to make sure that they understand, if they are selected, when
Right.
would we expect them to
Yeah.
start the process?
Yeah, we may, let's see, we can, we've got it in here that we've asked for costs for, each fiscal year. He's got, been a few days right here. So it's beginning for the 22-23 audit.
Yeah.
So we're in some ways, because of our schedule, we're gonna be ahead of most of the cities in terms of, so auditor that does municipal work probably can come in and get this done before they do larger agencies, which wouldn't be ready perhaps that soon. Just keep in mind that Natalie typically starts working with the audit team remotely, maybe like by June. So before the end of the year, and then a lot all through, and really the field work is the end of the audit.
Yeah, by the time they're here, we're 95% done.
So, work is gonna need, is probably would have commenced immediately in June. It doesn't have, it doesn't
I
necessarily
mean,
need to.
I'll keep doing my work the way I always do it.
Yeah.
And then,
They'll catch up.
Yeah, you'll have a bow on it.
you know, I don't know. It'll probably. It'll be all good.
It's not your first rodeo.
But who will be involved with the evaluations?
So, we can assign that, or the committee can inherit that, staff can do a first review of the scoring of these proposals. We did outline a criteria, let's see, it's right here. So the evaluation criteria, which again, we utilize from other samples and try to customize it to make us work, or make it work for us. We've assigned 35% based on the firm's experience, 25% by the personnel they've assigned. 10% for the planning of their schedule, and then 20% based on their costs.
I would think that this committee should probably be part of the evaluation, seeing as the auditor does report to the board. And it's the board's, so I think there should be.
I think there's absolutely, if you're willing to do so, we can, outside of the committee meetings, we can, give you all the proposals that we receive and ask that you individually score, bring back, and then at that May 12th committee meeting, we could review the combined scores and try to make a recommendation at that time based on your.
I would think we should do that.
I would agree.
I'd like to see a packet delivered from your side of the house where your scores, and we can compare and look at our scores.
Yeah, we could score as well, and then as well as the committee members. There's another.
Sorry, Natalie, I've been fighting for this for a long time.
I know, it's okay.
It's just, I've been through it myself and I hated it when I was in your position, but it's just something that we have to do.
Oh, yeah, there's no. worries.
Okay,
Is that kind of, the schedule kind of work? We will prepare score sheets and get, as soon as we have these proposals all in, we'll get them to you. We'll score them as well, and then on May 12th, we'll populate, we'll come up with a date to have your scores back, and then for the May 12th packet, we'll produce all the averages and everything else, and we'll present that information to this committee meeting, and then you can go from there. There still is time to do some more in-depth review between May 12th, if the committee cannot come to an immediate consensus on who to recommend.
And we have that May 12th meeting already.
You're holding the May 12th
Yeah.
meeting, yeah.
Okay.
Does it work?
Okay.
Good job.
She's real excited to have a new team.
No,
Hey, you know what?
Everybody
It
keeps
can't be
telling me
FEMA.
it'll be easier than any of the past 14 years of audit.
Who does?
They were pretty thorough,
Neil?
so, yeah.
my guess is they're probably gonna get the contract again. I mean, that's the way in my experience in the past. It usually works, right?
We'll see. Like I said, I don't know if they have another partner to do it.
Well, I think it's more than just another partner.
I think it's.
There's just
it's time.
too much has gone on with
Well, yeah.
the financial institutions and their auditors.
Well, the
so-
problem is, I think we've had the same audit firm
For a long time.
for too long, and they don't have a real number of auditors sitting on the bench, so it's the same old, same old.
Well, we changed
changed
we
partners.
changed 5 years ago
Yeah,
to Mike Zizzi, but I don't know who else they have.
yeah.
Mike Zizzi wanted to come here because he liked this area, so I think that was something that was why he was
We could go wine tasting.
Yeah, he brought his wife, it was like a mini vacation.
We're
Something.
moving to budget preparation.
Yep, we are.
Yeah, if you're ready. So we
We're
did,
ready.
we have a budget calendar, just, this was just really intended to be kind of for information only, but since there was interest in discussing the property tax allocation, I just started thinking about it, it might be handy. We moved the meeting to May, we're holding a meeting date for May 12th because we need to be able to turn around the information after we review it to you to get the incomplete draft budget put together for the board's workshop in early June. We don't have a lot of time after that May 12th meeting to make adjustments. If this committee wants to review the property tax allocation and see what its impacts are based on the draft budget, after the draft budget numbers are prepared, I almost, well,
We've got to.
can we be that dynamic on May 12th, or would we have to do so ahead of time if we were gonna make those adjustments? I mean, I guess it's not that difficult to calculate.
It's not too bad. I mean, maybe we could come up with a couple of different scenarios or percentage scenarios.
So, how much time are we holding on May 12th?
I have 2 hours, I think, on the calendar. Yeah, I have 1:30 to 3:30.
So let's pause for a second. This committee's review of the budget has gone pretty smoothly and relatively quick to taking 2 days. Now we're adding the audit selection to the same meeting, so that's gonna take a chunk of time that again can't really be postponed. We could probably get more done on the 12th, including some scenarios and on the budget for both the cost allocation and its impacts, and also the property tax allocation, if the committee's able to devote more time. But I don't know if that's possible.
I can devote more time.
Yeah, I do.
I'm available.
You'll be able to go later if needed. Can we adjust our reservations to just the whole afternoon?
It's a Friday. It's my flex day.
There you go.
We could change it from 1 till whenever.
Well, we'll just meet earlier.
Well, if we didn't have to wrap up by a certain time, I think it would give me more comfort that we'd be able to finish. it that
I'm
day.
open. I'm
Yeah.
open. So, and Eric just said that's his flex day.
Oh, we need to know those flex things.
Every other Friday.
Is when May 12th isn't.
It's not
Oh.
Friday.
No, it's Wednesday.
No, it's a Friday. That's
It's a Friday.
May 12th,
a
yes.
Friday.
Okay.
Yes, that's.
Sorry. Yeah, we have an error on that.
Oh, I think I changed
You know what?
and I never changed the.
Oh,
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
'cause originally we were gonna hold this the following week. Remember, we were holding it on gonna hold it on the 17th and then.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's
yeah,
an
that's
error.
okay.
That's an error. Okay, it was throwing me when he was saying it's his flex day.
Oh,
You
So
started it?
we're good now.
You're gonna be gone?
But after that, May, or after Friday.
Oh, for 2 weeks.
after the 12th.
What are you thinking? All
Okay,
right, so
so
Friday, May 12th.
If
is
you could all
when
hold the
we-
whole afternoon, then I
Yeah.
feel a lot more confident that we can manipulate scenarios and actually come up with, if you wanna.
I'll
Be
extend.
able
the
to
time.
see the impacts of a shift. In property tax allocation, if you wanna, review some.
I
options.
think
We have to check the
As much
Friday.
as I know it's an uproar when we talk about anything having to do with Park and Rec, but I know Melissa is looking at, she realizes in the future, some of those costs for Park and Rec can't be absorbed by the revenue stream that's currently in place. So I think it may just, I would appreciate giving her a heads up that potentially there could be less allocated.
Yeah, and just keep in mind, we've done a couple of things, in Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, we gave them the,
They're receiving, Parks and Rec now has the franchise fees as a
Yeah.
revenue source, so that helps. And then just the cost allocation plan that we just discussed. Creates
not too
like
much of
a
an
$40,000 savings right there.
yeah.
So as long as,
Yeah, because I think we really need to take a hard look at, yeah, I know that Park and Rec, but maybe there needs to be more parent involvement. And not just say, well, we want to, pay for service. No, maybe some of the parents need to step up and do more. So, I want to make sure we have a fire department that can respond.
okay, if you're gonna hold the whole afternoon, like I said, I'm more comfortable, we can be more dynamic with those impacts and see.
So Terry, are you gonna send an update then?
Yeah,
to-
I will send that.
I will look at this, like, it's locked in, I accepted, so it won't let me
Yeah,
change.
I'll
I-
update it.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's a Friday. Natalie will be here Wednesday too, so.
Okay,
Okay, future items, meetings.
So we have the meeting of May 12th. Is there any other items that you want to have on there? You've got a potentially pretty. Just the audit selection, again, we'll know on April 20th, and you'll know shortly thereafter how much, how in-depth that's gonna be. It's possible we'll only get one or two proposals in this fall. It won't have to be a very time-consuming activity. It's also possible we'll get 8, and then it will.
When would we, I would like to bring the full board in as soon as possible on the allocation of the property tax. So when would we
Well,
like to discuss that?
We have slated the budget workshop to be on the first meeting in June. But if this committee's, if you're gonna meet, let's say you're talking about property tax allocation on May 12th, and let's say you reach some sort of consensus recommendation on a split, that can be reported to the board as soon as May 16th. It wouldn't be on their agenda necessarily for action, but kind of a heads up. June 6th, again, would be our budget workshop, and the budget adoption would be slated for June 20th.
so it would be May 16th is what that board meeting, it would be. This is what's being proposed,
Right,
and that it will be finalized then at the budget meeting on,
that's fine,
yeah, because that would work.
and you'll be in charge on the 16th.
I'm always in charge.
That's true.
Yeah, so, okay,
Okay. That works.
Yeah, and when you just keep in mind, like for this meeting, we'll make. This recording is gonna will be posted by tomorrow. And then we'll have minutes, we'll include in these minutes that you've allocated more time and you want to go over these things, we'll note that. So that anyone, because the minutes will go back to you for comment. Hopefully by tomorrow, and there's a decent chance we can actually have these minutes in the board packet for the next meeting. And what I would recommend is, hey, there's our committee's looking at some significant adjustments to the way the budget's put together, more to follow on May 12th, but you may want to watch the presentation and show up with your, sleeves rolled up on June 6th, because there's gonna probably be some work to do.
I would agree.
Okay, yeah, fine. Okay, Eric, is there anything you would like to ask or?
I do, how early before the May 12th we see a draft, like a week advance, couple days, do you have?
Probably the Wednesday or Thursday before.
Okay, just want to have time to review before that meeting.
Yeah, and just keep in mind what we've historically reviewed, Eric, with the committee is there's not a lot of content to it. It's just some numbers.
Yeah.
There's no, we won't have a document. It'll be Excel spreadsheets for each of the funds that have some history and a draft recommendation, but all the other stuff kind of comes, kind of comes later.
Okay.
So, but you can familiarize yourself with our budget format just by looking at the current one now, and at least you'll kind of know what else would be coming.
Okay.
But we've been able to. We've just had the departmental operating funds, revenue and expenses for each operation. At that time.
And just keep in mind, this committee just makes a recommendation to the board. We have no authority to.
Yep.
Okay, anything else before I turn the meeting? Don?
No, I agree with Director Logan. I am extremely concerned that if we take $200,000 out of the fire department budget, we're back to pre-Measure A days.
We'll do a Measure B.
We'll have to do something.
Well, I think that's gonna be presented at the board meeting as well, the fire meeting. And some of the issues,
Yeah, because at this point, I mean,
I think it
our
will,
biggest holdup with purchasing an engine is we don't have enough money in the operating fund to do asset replacement. We can buy the engine, we can't do asset replacement.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna take $200,000 away from that.
Yeah.
I mean, my
Well, that's why-
entire operating fund, typically minus the salaries and overtime, is about 300,000. So you just chopped it in a third.
and I think that's when this property tax allocation has to be looked at.
You know,
Because maybe historically, we've not done the allocation of the way we should have. Or maybe we need a new methodology going forward, but then I think it begs the question, is the property tax allocation correct? So, and we've done some things in the past with Park and Rec to prop that up, so, yeah, so I think we just need to look at everything. Because it's all connected, so.
Okay. I will turn the meeting.
So it's just a good